The doorbell chimed softly as Emily Carter stepped into the glittering world of Valencia Luxe Boutique. At just 24, she worked harder than anyone, yet was treated worse than all. Her manager, Miranda Ross, barked orders like a queen. Coffee, now! And don't forget to clean the fitting rooms. Every sale Emily made, Miranda stole the commission. The other employees whispered and laughed at her plain clothes while posing in designer heels. That afternoon, the glass door opened again. An old man in a torn coat and muddy shoes walked in. The air froze. "Sir, you're lost," one worker sneered. "This place isn't for people like you." Emily's heart tightened. She hurried over, offering him a glass of water. "Please, take a seat." The man smiled weakly. "You're kind. My dear, I'd like to buy 10 luxury suits." Laughter exploded around them. Miranda crossed her arms. 10 suits? With what money?" When he quietly said his wallet was with his grandson, Miranda's face twisted in anger. "Get out, both of you." Emily reached into her small purse, giving him her last few dollars. "At least take a taxi home?" The old man's eyes softened. "Good things happen to good people," he whispered. The taxi stopped in front of towering iron gates. The driver turned in disbelief. "Sir, this is your home?" The old man smiled faintly. "It is." Moments later, the gates of the Dawson estate swung open, revealing a mansion that seemed to glow beneath the late afternoon sun. Marble pillars, crystal chandeliers, rows of roses so perfect they looked painted. The man who had been laughed at as a beggar stepped out and walked through the grand entrance with quiet dignity. Servants bowed as he passed. Inside the vast living room, a tall man in a tailored charcoal suit stood waiting. His expression was calm, sharp, and unreadable. "Grandfather," he said in a low, steady voice, "where have you been? The house staff said you disappeared for hours." Henry Dawson looked at his grandson, Ethan, and smiled. "I went to see the world, Ethan, to see what it has become." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You could have told me. You had everyone worried." "I needed to see with my own eyes," Henry said softly, sinking into his favorite armchair. "And what I saw broke my heart." Ethan frowned, confused. "What happened?" Henry folded his trembling hands. "I visited one of our own stores today, Valencia Luxe Boutique." That name immediately caught Ethan's attention. It was one of the company's flagship boutiques in the city. "Yes. What about it?" "I walked in, dressed as I am," Henry said, glancing down at his worn coat. "The staff mocked me. The manager called me a beggar. They threw me out." Ethan's calm facade cracked for the first time. "They... what?" Henry nodded slowly. "They humiliated me in front of everyone. Laughed at me as if I were filth." Ethan's eyes darkened, his voice suddenly ice cold. "Who did this?" Henry hesitated for a moment, then his expression softened. "Not everyone, Ethan. There was one person who was different. A young woman named Emily Carter." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "Emily Carter?" "Yes," Henry said, his tone warm now. "While the others mocked me, she offered me water. She smiled as if I were a real customer. She helped me pick suits I didn't need. When I couldn't pay, she gave me her last few dollars for a taxi." Ethan's anger faltered. He stared at his grandfather, almost unable to believe what he was hearing. "She gave you money?" "She did," Henry whispered, without hesitation. "I told her that good things happen to good people, and I meant it." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Only the ticking of an antique clock echoed through the marble hall. Then Ethan rose to his feet, his movements sharp and deliberate. "What is the name of the manager?" "Miranda Ross," Henry replied quietly. Ethan's voice dropped to a deadly calm. "She'll never work for this company again." "Ethan," Henry said gently, Firing her won't fix the world. Ethan turned toward the massive glass window overlooking the gardens. The setting sun cast a golden reflection across his face, highlighting the quiet fury in his eyes. "No," he said, "but kindness deserves to be rewarded. I want that girl found." "Found?" Henry echoed. "Yes," Ethan replied firmly. "Find her. Bring her here. I want to meet her myself." Henry watched his grandson, pride flickering behind his weary eyes. "You remind me of your father when you speak like that," he said softly. Ethan glanced back, his tone still clipped but his gaze thoughtful. If she could show kindness when everyone else chose cruelty, then she's not ordinary. He reached for the phone on his desk. "Ryan," he said when his assistant answered, "I want every record from Valencia Luxe Boutique. Staff lists, sales logs, everything. Find an employee named Emily Carter." "Yes, Mr. Dawson," came the quick reply. Ethan hung up, his mind already racing. Somewhere in that vast city, a girl with nothing had done something no one else would. And soon, she was about to discover that the old man she helped was no ordinary stranger. As night fell over the Dawson mansion, the fountain outside shimmered in silver moonlight. Henry sat quietly by the window, sipping his tea, a faint smile on his face. He whispered to himself, "Good things happen to good people. Emily, you'll see." Far across town, Emily walked home alone, unaware that her life had already begun to change. The next morning was cold and gray, matching the heaviness in Emily's heart. She had spent the night staring at her cracked ceiling, wondering what to do next. The boutique had fired her. Her rent was due, and her wallet was nearly empty. She wrapped her old coat tighter around her shoulders and whispered, "Everything will be fine," even though she didn't believe it. Then, a sleek black car slowed to a stop in front of her tiny apartment building. The engine purred like a panther. For a moment, she thought it was a mistake. Cars like that did not belong in her neighborhood. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a man in a perfectly pressed suit. "Miss Emily Carter?" he asked politely. She froze. "Yes? My name is Ryan Brooks. I am the personal assistant to Mr. Ethan Dawson, CEO of Dawson Holdings. Mr. Dawson would like to speak with you." Emily blinked. "Mr. Dawson, the billionaire?" Ryan nodded. "Please come with me. You have nothing to fear." Her first instinct was to refuse. This had to be some kind of scam. Why would a man like Ethan Dawson want to meet her? But there was something calm, professional, and sincere in Ryan's voice, against her better judgment. She nodded. "All right." The door opened with a quiet click. She stepped inside and sank into the softest leather seat she had ever felt. The car glided through the city, leaving behind the noisy streets and cracked sidewalks of her world. Outside, skyscrapers melted into green hills and manicured gardens. As they passed through golden gates, her breath caught. The Dawson estate was not a house. It was a palace. White marble steps, cascading fountains, and a chandelier that glittered even from outside. Servants lined the driveway, waiting to receive the car. When Ryan opened her door, she hesitated before stepping out, her shoes clicking softly against the stone path. "Please follow me, Miss Carter," Ryan said gently. They entered a grand hall filled with soft music and sunlight pouring through glass windows. Every corner glowed with quiet luxury. Emily's heart pounded. She'd never seen anything like it. Then she heard a familiar voice. "Well, my dear, now you see," Henry Dawson said warmly from across the room. He was no longer in the torn coat. He wore an elegant navy suit, his posture straight, his smile wide. "I told you good things happen to good people." Emily's mouth fell open. "Mr. Dawson?" He chuckled. "Yes, that's my name. I wasn't lying about my grandson, but I may have forgotten to mention who he was." Before Emily could respond, footsteps echoed from the staircase. A tall man descended slowly, his presence commanding the entire room, His dark suit framed broad shoulders, and his eyes were cold, sharp, and impossibly deep. "Ethan," Henry said, turning toward him with pride. "This is the young woman I told you about." Ethan Dawson stopped at the foot of the stairs, his gaze landing on Emily. For a long moment he said nothing. He simply studied her, the nervous way she clasped her hands, the faint blush on her cheeks, the quiet dignity in her eyes. Henry smiled. She was the only one who showed kindness today. You could learn a thing or two from her, my boy. Emily's face burned. "Sir, please, you don't have to say that," she murmured. Ethan's lips curved slightly. It wasn't quite a smile, but it wasn't distant either. "It's rare," he said quietly, "to meet someone who helps without expecting anything in return." Their eyes met. The world seemed to pause. Henry glanced between them, his smile growing softer. "I think fate has its ways," he said lightly. "Emily, my dear, you've just stepped into a story much bigger than you realize." Emily felt her pulse quicken. She didn't know why, but standing in that grand hall, under the watchful gaze of a billionaire and his mysterious grandson, she sensed that her life was about to change forever. Outside, the winter wind swept across the garden, scattering the rose petals that had begun to bloom too early, as if the world itself was holding its breath for what was coming next. Emily sat on the edge of the velvet couch, her heart pounding like a drum. She had never felt so out of place in her life. Every inch of the Dawson mansion shimmered with elegance, from the marble floors to the golden-framed paintings that seemed to watch her every move. Across the room, Ethan Dawson stood tall, his sharp eyes observing her silently. Then, without a word, he gestured to his assistant. Ryan entered carrying a tray stacked with elegant boxes, each wrapped in gold ribbons. Ethan's tone was calm, but there was power behind it. "These are for you, Miss Carter." Emily blinked in confusion. "For me?" Ryan began opening the boxes one by one. Inside were designer handbags, shoes that looked like art, a diamond necklace glinting under the light, and finally, a key resting in a black velvet case. Ethan looked straight at her. "A car. Consider it a small token for what you did for my grandfather." For a few seconds, Emily was too stunned to speak. Then she shook her head quickly. "No, Mr. Dawson, I can't accept any of this." Ethan frowned slightly. "Why not? You helped him. You deserve to be rewarded." Emily's voice trembled, but her eyes were steady. "I didn't help him for a reward. I helped because it was the right thing to do." The room fell silent. Even Ryan paused. Surprised by her sincerity, Ethan's lips parted, but no words came out. He wasn't used to hearing no, not from anyone. Henry chuckled softly from his chair. "You see, Ethan, that's exactly what I meant. She's rare." Emily turned toward him, embarrassed. "Sir, please, I didn't mean to sound ungrateful." Henry smiled warmly. "Nonsense. My dear, you did what no one else would. You treated an old man with dignity. That's something money cannot buy." Ethan's gaze softened, though he said nothing. For the first time in a long while, he was genuinely intrigued. People chased him for fame, wealth, and power. Yet here was a woman who refused everything he offered. Henry leaned forward, his tone suddenly gentle. "Emily, you live alone, don't you?" She nodded quietly. "Yes, sir. I rent a small apartment downtown." "Then do me a favor," Henry said kindly. "Stay here for a while. This house is too quiet, and I could use some company." Emily's eyes widened. "Stay here? Oh, I couldn't possibly." "But you could," Henry interrupted with a grin. "Think of it as helping an old man pass the time. You'll have your own room, no obligations. Just keep me company." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Grandfather, are you sure about this?" Henry gave him a knowing look. "Quite sure. Besides, You could use some time around people who remind you what kindness looks like. Emily hesitated, torn between fear and gratitude. She looked at Ethan, who was still watching her, his expression unreadable. I don't want to be a burden, she whispered. You won't be, Henry assured her. You've already done more for this family than you realize. Finally. Emily nodded softly. All right, sir, just for a short while. Henry's eyes sparkled with satisfaction. Splendid. Then it settled. As Ryan led her to her new room, Emily's mind raced. How had her life changed so completely in just 24 hours? The kindness she had given without expecting anything in return had brought her into a world she never imagined. Behind her, Ethan stood by the window, watching her disappear down the hall. For reasons he couldn't explain, something in his chest stirred. He didn't know it yet, but this quiet, modest girl was about to change everything. Outside, the evening sun bathed the mansion in a golden glow, and for the first time, the cold-hearted billionaire found himself wondering if there truly were things in life that money could never buy. The next few days in the Dawson mansion passed quietly, almost too quietly. Emily tried her best to stay invisible, spending her mornings helping Henry with breakfast and her evenings reading to him in the sunroom. The old man adored her laughter. He said it made the house feel alive again, but peace never lasts long in a house built on power. That afternoon, the sound of an engine echoed through the front gates. A red convertible glided to a stop, the kind that announced its owner before she even stepped out. The staff hurried to open the door, and out came Vanessa Reed, tall, elegant, and wearing confidence like perfume. Her designer heels clicked sharply on the marble floor as she walked in without knocking. "Ethan," she called out sweetly, though her tone carried the chill of entitlement. Ethan appeared from his office, his expression calm but guarded. "Vanessa, what are you doing here?" "I was in the neighborhood," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thought I'd surprise you." Her gaze wandered around the hall until it stopped on Emily, who was arranging a vase of fresh lilies by the staircase. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Vanessa's smile faltered. "Well," she said slowly, "I see you've taken in new staff." Emily turned and slightly startled. "Oh, I'm not." Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. "No need to explain, dear. I understand. Everyone needs a job." Her tone dripped with condescension. Henry, who had just entered the room, raised an eyebrow. "Miss Reed," he said politely, "this young woman is not staff. She's my guest." Vanessa froze, the mask slipping for a moment. "Guest?" "That's right," Henry said firmly. "Emily Carter, the one who showed me kindness when no one else would." Vanessa blinked, her perfect smile cracking. "Oh," she said softly, her voice sweet as poison. "How touching." Then she turned back to Emily, her expression sharpening. "You must be quite proud of yourself, living here, in this mansion, surrounded by wealth. Not bad for a boutique clerk." Emily's cheeks flushed, but she forced a small smile. "I'm just here to help Mr. Dawson. Nothing more." Vanessa tilted her head, her voice lowering just enough to sting. "Of course, helping. That's what they all say before they find their way into a rich man's bed." The words cut like glass. Emily's eyes widened, her throat tightening. Before she could speak, a deep voice sliced through the tension. "That's enough. Vanessa." Ethan stood just a few steps away, his tone calm but deadly serious. Vanessa turned, her painted smile faltering. "I was only joking." "You don't get to joke at her expense," Ethan said coldly. "Emily is a guest in my home. You will treat her with respect." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Vanessa's lips twitched, struggling to hold her composure. "You're defending her?" "Yes," Ethan said simply. "I am Henry's eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction, while Emily stood frozen. Unsure whether to feel grateful or embarrassed, Vanessa let out a short, bitter laugh. Unbelievable. I leave for a few weeks and you replace me with this charity project. Ethan's expression didn't change. You were never replaced, Vanessa. You were never mine to begin with. That single sentence hit harder than any slap. Her eyes filled with fury. You'll regret this, she hissed, clutching her purse. Both of you will. Without another word, she turned sharply and stormed out, her heels echoing down the marble hallway. From the window, Emily watched as the red convertible sped away down the driveway. Her hands trembled slightly, though she didn't know why. Henry's voice broke the silence. You've made an enemy today, my dear, and that woman doesn't lose gracefully. Ethan looked toward the door where Vanessa had vanished, his jaw tightening. Let her try, he muttered. Emily didn't realize it yet, but Vanessa's jealousy had just lit the fuse of something far more dangerous. Days turned into weeks, and the Dawson mansion slowly began to feel less like a palace and more like a home to Emily. Yet, deep down, she knew she couldn't stay there forever. One morning, as she poured Henry a cup of tea, she spoke softly. Mr. Dawson, I can't keep living here for free. I need to find work. I want to earn my own way. Henry smiled gently. You remind me of my late wife, he said. Stubborn but proud. Before Emily could answer, Ethan appeared in the doorway, adjusting his cufflinks. You're looking for work? Emily nodded. Yes, sir. I'm grateful for everything, but I can't depend on anyone. Ethan studied her for a moment. His tone was calm but purposeful. Then maybe I have the solution. I need a new personal assistant. Someone I can trust. Emily froze. You want me to work for you? Ethan gave a small nod. You already earned my grandfather's trust. That's more than most people here ever will. Henry chuckled, his eyes glinting. There you have it, my dear. The offer of a lifetime. After a moment of hesitation, Emily took a deep breath. All right, Mr. Dawson. I'll do it. The next morning, she walked into the towering glass building of Dawson Holdings. Her heart pounding, the lobby gleamed with marble floors and gold accents, a symbol of power and prestige. She clutched her new ID badge tightly, determined to prove herself. But not everyone was happy to see her there. The whispers started before lunch. She's the new secretary? No wonder she got the job. Sleeping with the boss must be easy money. The cruel laughter stung more than she wanted to admit. Emily kept her head down and worked tirelessly. She organized Ethan's meetings, answered calls, and stayed late into the night. But no matter how hard she tried, the rumors grew louder. At the center of it all was Vanessa Reed, sitting in her corner office. She smiled while watching the chaos unfold. Let them talk, she said to her assistant. Soon, no one will take that girl seriously. By the end of the week, the entire company was buzzing with gossip. Some employees snickered when Emily passed by, others whispered behind her back. The humiliation was suffocating, but she refused to quit. When Ethan finally heard the rumors, something in him snapped. He stormed into the boardroom, his face dark with anger. The meeting room was packed with executives and staff, including Vanessa, who sat with her usual confident smirk. Ethan's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. Before we begin, he said, I need to address something. The room fell silent. There have been rumors about my new assistant, Emily Carter. His tone was steady, but his eyes burned with fury. Let me make this perfectly clear. This woman did something none of you ever did. He paused, looking directly at Vanessa. She helped my grandfather when every single one of you turned him away. Gasps rippled across the room. Vanessa's smirk vanished. Ethan continued, his voice rising with authority. Emily Carter is the reason Mr. Henry Dawson is alive and well today. She treated him with respect when others treated him like dirt. She is the only person in this company who has proven she understands what this family stands for. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Ethan turned his gaze to the crowd, sharp and unrelenting. If I hear one more word about her that isn't related to work, the person responsible will be fired on the spot. No one dared to speak. Vanessa's cheeks burned crimson as dozens of eyes turned toward her. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, the weight of humiliation pressing down. Ethan's voice softened slightly. Dawson Holdings was built on integrity. Maybe it's time some of you remembered that. He walked out of the room, leaving behind a stunned silence. Emily stood by the door, her eyes glistening. For the first time since she had joined the company, someone had stood up for her. And for reasons she couldn't explain, that moment changed something deep inside her. After the storm at Dawson Holdings, the office seemed to settle into uneasy silence. The whispers stopped, at least on the surface, and Emily finally found a rhythm in her new role. She learned how Ethan liked his coffee, how he preferred his meetings timed to the minute, and how his sharp temper softened slightly whenever she entered the room. For weeks, they worked side by side, often staying late as the city lights shimmered through the tall glass windows. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, it was alive, charged with something neither dared to name. One evening, long after everyone had gone home, Emily was still typing a report when Ethan's voice broke the quiet. "You should go home. It's past 9. She smiled faintly without looking up. "I will. Just finishing this last page." He walked over, stopping beside her desk. "You're always finishing something. Don't you ever take a break?" She looked up at him then, the glow of her monitor reflecting in her eyes. "I could ask you the same question." For the first time, Ethan laughed softly. "Touché." There was warmth in his voice that caught her off guard. He hesitated before saying, "Emily, have dinner with me." The words hung in the air, simple yet impossible. Emily blinked, unsure she had heard right. "Dinner? Like a work dinner?" Ethan's gaze held hers. "No, not work. Just dinner." Her heart raced. "I don't think that's a good idea," she whispered. "Why not?" he asked gently. "People already talk enough," she said, her voice barely audible. "Let them talk," Ethan replied. "I don't care what they think." There was something in his tone, firm yet sincere, that disarmed her. After a long pause, Emily nodded. "All right, just dinner." That night, they met at a quiet restaurant overlooking the city skyline. Candles flickered on the table, painting soft light on her face. They talked for hours about work, about family, about life before all the wealth and chaos. Ethan listened in a way few people ever had. And when she laughed, he realized it had been years since he'd heard anything so real. After a romantic evening, Ethan's admission to Emily triggered a media frenzy following their dinner, as headlines branded her a gold digger. Emily faced relentless hate. Vanessa's tearful interview fueled public outrage, leaving Emily distraught while Ethan realized their connection had spiraled into an uncontrollable situation beyond their control. The scandal had turned into wildfire. Every newspaper, gossip site, and TV show in the country carried the same headline: "The Billionaire and His Secretary." Ethan tried everything to protect Emily, but the media hunted them relentlessly. The Dawson name, once spotless, was suddenly on every tongue, and thousands of miles away, a private jet cut through the clouds. On board sat Margaret Dawson, the matriarch of the family, a woman whose elegance could silence a room. Her eyes, sharp and composed. Read the headline on a magazine: "Is Ethan Dawson losing control?" She closed it with a sigh of quiet fury. When her car arrived at the mansion, the staff froze. Henry met her at the door, his expression calm but cautious. "Margaret," he greeted. "It's been a long time." She removed her gloves one finger at a time. "Long enough to see my son destroy everything we built." Henry's gaze softened. He's just found something he never had before. Don't start with sentiment. Father, she cut him off. This isn't about love, it's about reputation. Moments later, she strode into Ethan's office like a storm in heels. He stood from his desk, startled. Mother, her tone was icy. Tell me it isn't true. Ethan's jaw tightened. If you're talking about Emily, it is true. I care about her. Margaret's lips thinned. She's using you. That girl is after your money, your name, everything we've worked for. She's nothing like that, Ethan said firmly. You don't know her. Margaret's voice rose, controlled but cutting. I don't need to know her. I know her type. She turned away briefly, gathering herself. You will end this immediately. No, Ethan said quietly. I won't. The silence that followed felt heavier than steel. Margaret stared at him, disbelief flickering in her eyes. You're choosing her over your family? I'm choosing the truth, he replied. Margaret's expression hardened again. Then I'll handle this myself. That evening, as rain began to fall over the city, Emily opened her apartment door to find a driver waiting. Miss Carter, he said, Mrs. Dawson would like to speak with you. Emily hesitated, her heart pounding. Mrs. Dawson, Ethan's mother? Yes, ma'am. She's waiting in the car. Emily stepped outside, her hands trembling slightly. Inside the sleek black vehicle, Margaret sat poised, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. Miss Carter, she began smoothly. I'll be direct. You've caused quite a storm. My son's company, our family reputation. The press, it's all chaos because of you. Emily swallowed hard. I never wanted this. I never asked for any of it. Margaret offered Emily $5 million to leave her son, but Emily rejected the offer, valuing love and integrity over money. Their exchange revealed deeper emotions, leaving Margaret uncertain whether she faced an enemy or someone deserving of respect.